Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Meredith Fogel, and this is season 4, Learning from Legends. And today we have a legend who is on the newer side of the spectrum as legends go, I think, Christian Stubbs, who is the founder and team leader for First Team Real Estate in Orange County, California. So he's going to join us. You have a team of, he said, around 25 agents, I think, and has experienced really quick success. So lots of stuff, Christian, that I'm going to pick your brain about. And I'm so excited to share with our audience. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start with your entree into real estate. So talk to us about, I saw on your website that you had a finance background, and it looked like you had super quick success in that industry. And then you were able to jump into real estate and experience the same kind of quick uptick into a successful business. What do you attribute that to? Is that just like who you are as a person, or how did you make that happen?
I think there's a couple of different things about it. And this speaks to most agents getting right into the business anyway, is when I graduated college, and like within 12 days I was working. And the finance background was actually it was totally by accident at a RV dealership. And my uncle, very long story short, my uncle knew a guy that was working at this brand new place. And he was like, "Oh, you got to go check this out. You can make 6 figures, no problem." And I'm like, "Leave me alone. I didn't go to college to sell RVs." And then long story short, I ended up getting hired there totally by accident. And I said, I'll do this for a few months until I can find a real job. And I just got after it right away, like did very well in sales, found out that I liked sales, moved up to management and so on and so on. But when I made the transition to get into real estate, I actually had the intentions of going the mortgage route. And believe it or not, an RV is harder to finance than a house because you can just drive it away and they'll never find it. But they're also 20-year loans. So we had a lot of people who were older, perfect credit scores with no income, and they couldn't qualify. So we would be like, "Well, sorry." And so we had a mortgage guy that was, somebody's buddy, and he was doing cash out refinances for these people, like 2 or 3 a month. And I'm like, "Well, screw this. I'm going to go get my mortgage license and I'll just do that also and make some extra money." And I hated that industry. I did not like working there. And I got like 80% of the way to my mortgage license. And I had the money set aside to buy my first investment property. And I just said, "You know what? Screw it. I'm going to bet on myself. I'll quit my job, take that money I had set aside and get into the real estate industry." But as an agent. So that was how I got in.
That is so interesting. That's such an interesting story. I want to ask you about when you said you realized you liked sales. Do you, like, thinking back, remember, like, what was it that made you go, I could do this? Like, this might be something I'm good at.
Yeah. And I did not think at all that I would go into sales. I thought I would more go into marketing, which now explains more of why I like marketing, as a business owner now. But the time where I realized I was, 1, good at it, and 2, enjoyed it, was it for me correlated very similar to sports. If whoever works the hardest is typically the best player on the team, was how I grew up. And yeah, there's natural abilities and a lot of that stuff in there as well too, but the least talented player on the team outworked most people. That player is going to still be good. And that I learned that was very true in the real world as well too. And I liked that aspect a lot. I was there. I wasn't exactly the first guy there every day, but I was always the last one to leave, always learning from the guys that were way more experienced ahead of me, which is, that helps you climb up the ladder in a company. But I love the competitive nature of it and trying to figure out, when there's a leaderboard, dry erase leaderboard in the office, and whoever's the top salesperson is on top, I was like, okay, I want to be on top of that.
Yeah. And so that speaks a little bit, I think, to your personality. And it's interesting you bring up the sports thing. And Christian and I were talking about this a little bit before. So you have a baseball background. You played through college, right?
Yeah, I played through college. Nothing too special, but a D2 college. I went to Cal State Monterey Bay for my last 2 years.
Okay. All right. So you have that team mentality kind of just like, in you already. And clearly you learn a lot of skills through working on a team. But when you get to the point in any kind of a sports career where you can take it to like the collegiate level, you've worked hard, but I think you have to also have some talent. And so I'm interested to hear your perspective on this. I always say, that kind of magic chemistry of success happens where that hard work and preparation meets natural talent, because you can be super talented and not do the work and never go anywhere, or you can do a ton of work and have no natural talent and still not go anywhere. So when you're looking at both for your own trajectory and when you're evaluating agents to potentially join your team, what's that like? What does that look like for you? Do you look to see if an agent kind of has that X factor of maybe being able to be persuasive in communication and good at sales? Or is there something that's teachable? And if so, what is it?
It's an interesting point and it's hard. So especially for a team agent, is what I've honestly found is the more talented the person is, they've probably gotten to a point where they don't need to work as hard because they're talented.
Mhm.
And in the real estate business, it is work ethic, especially early in. If you're talking about newer agents, your work ethic is going to outshine your skill because it's the contact sport. You have to have a ton of conversations. You have to be doing the work, doing the open houses, doing whatever, to where what I look for more than anything is productivity, because the outcome will come. If someone's doing everything that they need to do and it's just deals just aren't happening, I'll stick with that person a heck of a lot longer than the person who's really talented, but I can't get them to show up.
Mm.
So that's really the difference that I look for. Now, to your point, the superstars are always the ones that do everything they're supposed to do, want to get better, and work hard.
Yeah.
But those are harder to find in really in anything, in sports and business and in life. Like, it's just, there aren't a lot of people that are really talented that want to work really hard, and the ones that do are really successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very well said. Yeah. All right. So let's go back to your beginnings in real estate. And you dove in, you decided mortgage wasn't for you. You were going to bet on yourself and go into real estate. How did you get started?
How did I get started? So I joined our local office, First Team Real Estate, in not quite my hometown, but pretty close. And I had met with the COO of our company just by chance. She happened to be in the office, and she has a really cool story. She started very, very early, owned several like buildings at a relatively young age. She was in the military, like just very like super impressive woman, Michelle Harrington. She's amazing. And that was one of the big things that was like, okay, I want to do that. I can do that. Because I was in a good job at the time, making good money at 24 years old. And it was hard to say, okay, I'm going to quit this, spend all the money I have in savings to see if this will work. But so what I did in the beginning was I went to this is an interesting point. I went to every single top producing agent that was in the office. And I went, all right, Meredith, where does all your business come from? And the first person answered, well, my past clients and my sphere of influence. I'm like, okay, well, I can't do that. Went to the next person. And I said, hey, John, where does all your business come from? It's like, oh, my farm and my past clients are my referrals. And it just became a common trend that every single agent that I interviewed, all of their business came from predominantly past clients and sphere of influence. So I very early was like, okay, if I want to be really successful in this business, I just need to get as much business as possible, as quickly as possible, so that I can, retire on past clients and referrals instead of 20 years from now, in like 5. So that was my original goal, was just like, okay, how do I do as many deals as possible?
Wow. And then when you started to get that insight, how did you kind of capture the strategies and start to apply them to your own business to get to that point of doing as many deals?
Yeah. So I did open houses. I did every Saturday and Sunday for my first 6 months. And then some Fridays. Outside of that, I was, just doing some of the basics, like boots on the ground type stuff that never really stuck for me. I really did a good job of open houses in the beginning. Did a handful of deals my first 6 months, and then at that point was the very beginning of 2020, where my ex business partner, he was still a full-time employee, and he was going around and saying, "Hey, I need some help with some of these leads that I'm getting." I think he was buying Zillow leads at the time. He said, "Hey, I need some help with these." I went to our assistant manager, and she said, "Hey, you should go talk to Christian. He's newer, but he like it seems like he knows what he's doing and he works hard." And so we ended up talking, and he asked me originally like, "Hey, do you mind helping me out with these deals?" Sure. So long story short, we started doing some deals together. I was kind of taking his overflow, and then he asked me if I wanted to join his team, and I said, "No, I don't want to do that. I want to make my own team or brokerage or whatever." I didn't know what it was called at that time, but I'm going to do my own thing, but I'll do all the work and we can split it 50-50. So it was all of the leads that I had from open houses, kind of marrying up at the same time as um, finding on the online lead generation. Zillow was first, and then several other sources after that, where at some point I didn't have the time to do open houses because we were out doing too many showings, and found an ROI on a lead source and just dumped gas on it. So 6 months in was January. By June, we were spending 25,000 a month, and kind of organically, almost by accident, started growing the team.
Okay, so talk to me about that piece of it. And one of the things you're mentioning here is online leads, which I know you are expert in. And you said what was your ranking? You're a huge Zillow Flex team. You said what was this the biggest in your area? Is that right, or second biggest?
We're the top converting. We're not the biggest, but we're the top converting in our area right now.
All right. So that is a magic formula I know the audience probably wants to know about. So whether you are listening and you're Zillow Flex, or you're paying for or obtaining any kind of online leads, this is something you want to really tune into. So what is that magic formula? So let's pretend, first of all, that maybe you're a solo agent and maybe you're paying for some kind of online leads. You're not Flex yet. So let's talk about that and how you would recommend that agents ensure that their conversion rates stay on the high side.
Yeah. So if you are Flex, these are, I don't want to say less important, but for speaking to that solo agent, or just speaking to the person who may be scaling a team, the little things matter way more if you're just buying leads and trying to get an ROI. So some of the easy, just doing the things we know we're supposed to do. I'll touch on the actual things, but we were really, really intentional on going in with one lead source at a time and really figuring it out before we try to add anything else. Now, at the time, I don't think that was intentional. I think that was, we found something that worked and we went forward with it. But for example, it could be as simple as your email marketing to these leads. Spend a week on the email campaign that you're going to send to these leads that you're investing a tremendous amount of money on, right? This is something that I talk about a lot now, is if you're going to be spending money on leads and you're going to be sending email marketing and video marketing or ads, all of those things are really high leverage that we spend no time on at all. Right. So how many agents are using the out of the box CRM email campaigns that 99% of the agents are all using the same emails, as opposed to going in and really crafting your message for your market? That's I think like obvious things. If you're going to spend thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars a month on leads, like get really intentional with the stuff you're sending to those people. It should make sense and put yourself in the consumer's shoes, I'd say, is number one. And then keeping that through the whole time you're growing this lead pillar. So for me, the basics of it were like Zillow leads. If you're not super familiar, you have to create a process with anything. So when you're answering the phone, it's the same script every single time. We're joking, like when me and my fiance would go out to dinner, she would be like mocking me using the Zillow script as I'm answering the call, because it's the same thing every single time.
And it works.
And it works. We've had the same answer rate. We've had the same appointment rate for 3 years now. It works. So things like that. So create a process and iterate it. So if you create a process and you're saying something, you're like, man, that's not as good a numbers as what somebody else is getting, or like I had better numbers before, continuously making those things better.
Mhm.
So those are like the major two things where that can relate to any different lead source. But where I see actual conversion, what moves the needle the absolute most is something. There's two different things. There's one thing that I just call, you got to be best friends with the lead. So Meredith, if you call me, we have a conversation on the phone. Maybe we set up a time to see a property tomorrow at 4 o'clock. My job is like, but before we meet tomorrow at 4 o'clock, I want to be your best friend. I want my number saved in your phone. I want to send you something that's helpful, that you find interesting. And I want to realize that I'm on a job interview to earn your business.
Mhm.
And I think oftentimes we don't treat leads that way. We treat them like they're clients when they're leads. And you have to earn the right to call somebody a client. And that's where I think is the biggest room for improvement for really most agents.
I love that. All right. So can we dig into that for a second?
Yeah.
How do you get my permission if I'm your lead for you to send me your contact information, for me to have that on my phone and save it as somebody that I want to talk to again? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, super simple. And we oftentimes complicate these things big time. But if we get off the phone, in my phone script, it's the same thing every single time. Twice, I'm going to say, all right, Meredith, well, right when we hop off this call, I'm going to text you with my personal number. Save that number in your phone. And then if you have any questions in the meantime, let me know. Cool. Hop off the phone. And I'm going to text them a text template that's the same every single time. It says, hey, Meredith, this is Christian. It was nice chatting with you. This is my personal number, so save it in your phone. So this is now the third time they're hearing that. And then it drops all my information down below.
Love it. And I love that you're telling me what to do. I think that's a piece, that a crucial piece that
100%.
agents miss. If you just say, here's my information, great. Should I delete it? Should I ignore it? But you're saying save it in your phone. So I know
Yeah.
exactly what to do.
And it
Awesome.
does another thing too, is I would say 60-70% of the time, they'll respond with, got it, cool, thanks, whatever, normal communication two humans would have together. But what it does is when I go to reach out to that person again, most likely they're going to see that we had previous communication and be way more likely to respond. Like that's just the basics of it.
So true. And then you mentioned that you're going to send me something that I would find interesting, something of value. What would you be sending?
Yeah, so this is where a lot of our agents get hung up. Is it's not, this part's not templated, scripted, whatever. This part is get good at your job. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dog going crazy downstairs reading an Amazon package.
Oh.
This mic works if you can't hear it. So this is the hard part, is depending on whatever your conversation was like, it could be as simple as, hey, we're just going to go see this house tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And maybe I'm sending you similar properties, right? Maybe I'm sending you a text, hey, Meredith, I found 4 other properties that I think you might be interested. Do you want to see those? I'm not going to send you the list
Right.
and say whatever, because I want a response from the person. But maybe it's as simple as this. What did you think of this area? Whatever. Or it could be, because of our phone conversation, maybe you talked about finances. Maybe I'm going to send you a latest article that we put out on the different ways to save money with different loan products. Whatever it is, if the closer you can tailor that to your actual conversation, the better. Worst case scenario, hey, here are some other properties that I think you might be interested. I went ahead and set them up. Let me know if you want to cancel any, which is a huge difference from, do you want to go see any other houses, versus saying, hey, I set up 4 other properties that are similar. Let me know if you want to cancel any of them.
Much more proactive approach. And I think it's interesting. A lot of times I think agents get up from that call and like, yes, got an appointment to go show something, and don't do anything else. And the next touch is
literally nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're great. It's great that you're creating an opportunity right then. And I think too, like for the agent, it's useful because it's kind of creating a synaptic connection for the agent that connects you more with that potential buyer than you would have had beforehand. That's
100%
strategy.
Yeah.
I love that.
And it goes with, like I said, is I want to be best friends with this person. I don't want it to be awkward when you meet him at the house anyway. Like that's not fun for anyone.
Right.
You want to be able to text your lead as you're driving up, like, hey, I'm pulling up. I got the gray car. I'm wearing a black shirt. I'll see you there in 2 minutes. And not for that not to be weird, especially if you're meeting a stranger at a house.
Right. And I think too, with online leads, especially sometimes Zillow leads, people are confused about who it is they're meeting, whether it's the listing agent or, they don't know.
You work for Zillow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it now is already preempting that concern and giving you the opportunity to connect with them as their agent, not just a key opening a door.
100%. Because that's the biggest misconception that we're trying to get around. Why I say
Yeah.
you're on a job interview is people think that we make too much money because we open doors. Like that's the general consensus
Yeah.
of what a real estate, especially a buyer's agent, does. So
Right.
the farther away from that I can get before I even meet the person, the better. I'll give you an example. It's not quite related, but I had one of my agents triple book herself last weekend, and she said, Christian, can you help me out with showing these properties? I said, sure, no problem. Just like introduce me to the client, text stream, whatever. And so she put this on a group email, and she says, hey, so and so, this is Christian. He's going to be helping out showing the properties. It would have been really easy for me to not respond because I didn't need to. There wasn't like a, hey, do something. Or just say, hey, yep, looking forward to seeing you. But I took the extra 12 seconds to turn my light on and film a quick video for that client. And like, hey, Jamie, this is Christian Stubbs. I just wanted to put a face to the name. We're going to be meeting on Friday. I actually grew up in the area we're looking in, blah, blah, blah. I'm really excited to see this house for this reason. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions in the meantime. I'll see you on Thursday, whatever. And sent that. And go figure, the client responds with, oh my God, I loved your video. It's so great. Can't wait to meet you.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's such a nice way, again, to like create that little bit of connection beforehand and comfort with the person beforehand. Love that. Like you said, 12 seconds, an extra 12 seconds that it takes. It doesn't
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So take me now to, so you started to really get traction, convert these online leads in a meaningful way. When did you start to go, maybe a team is the right thing for me to think about building?
Yeah. So the obvious answer, I should say obvious, but the obvious for most people starting a team is I'm too busy and things are starting to fall through the cracks.
Yep.
And that was happening. But we also weren't super proactive with trying to bring people onto the team. What was good was the first handful of people that joined the team were really organic. And they were saying, hey, you guys are doing things the right way. Like, it's really cool what you're building over there. Can we be a part of it? You know, and at first it was like, call the assistant manager and be like, hey, somebody wants to work with us. What does that look like? And then it really grew from there, in huge part from the Tom Ferry organization, just learning from other people's mistakes. But that was really it in the beginning. It was as simple as we were too busy and stuff was starting to fall through our fingers. And we said, hey, we need some help here. And what it really allowed me to do is to leverage my sales ability to where, the 80-20 rule, where you should be spending all of your time making the money and not doing nonsense. Right. And what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to spend all of my time with the people who are bottom of funnel, ready to go. And anybody who wasn't, and maybe it was going to buy 6 months or a year from now, I was able to pass them along or have somebody else help them out because I didn't have time for them either way. And that was the early growth of the team was, hey, we're just too busy. We need some help. Now, in hindsight, the production partner model, if you're not familiar with that, that'd be a fun conversation, is in hindsight, what would have probably been, it would have definitely been the smarter move from a profitability standpoint, because there's a lot of people that talk about growing a team and starting a team and don't really figure out what that looks like until they're in it.
Right. Yeah. All right. So talk to us about, for an agent, I'm going to go back to the production partner thing in a minute, but
yeah,
an agent who is getting some good traction with online or other leads, and they're like, well, I know I'm really busy. I think I can handle it. I really don't want to have to like split my commission. And how do I decide what leads to give to people? What do you say to that agent who's struggling with, I want to keep this all to myself and I want to bring somebody
on? Don't try to keep it all for yourself, right? Like the saying that I often say when I'm talking to people who are thinking about starting a team is, if you're saying I want to start a team and you can't say to yourself, I want to start a business and mean it, you shouldn't do it. You just shouldn't. If you're worried about that and you don't want to start a business and you don't want to have people that depend on you outside of your clients and all that, maybe you just find a referral partner in your office and you refer the deal out and you make 30, 25% or whatever of that deal. and you don't have any involvement whatsoever outside of making sure that you partner them with a good person. I think more people should do that than people actually starting a team, because it is, you're starting a business. That agent that's on your team, they might not be W-2, but their income is 100%, not 100, but very much dependent on your ability to lead them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's my number one piece of advice is like, if you can't really say, I want to start a real business here, figure out what you want your long term to be. What do you want that thing to look like in 3 to 5 years? And if you say that and then you want to do it, great. There's steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you don't really want to do that, I think a lot of people are getting pressure from society or the marketplace to start a team, and maybe it's not right for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you make a really good point. Starting a team is starting a business, or should be. And I think a lot of times agents, for different reasons, they're lonely doing it themselves, or their best friend wants to join with them, and they're like, yeah, let's do a team, which isn't really a team. But there are different ways of working together with people, as you point out, that don't necessarily need to be a team. A team is a business. Talk to us about what a production partner is.
Yeah. So a production partner is that if you have a friend that, we should work together, it'd be great. A production partner allows you to leverage yourself without paying out a tremendous amount of money. What it does, to put it in simplest terms, a production partner is somebody that's married to your production. So if you're in a position where you're totally kicking butt as an agent and you want to bring a team agent in under you, and maybe you're going to hand off a lead that you're too busy for to this person, and they go close it, and you're on a 50-50 split, and you get 50 and they get 50, great. I would venture to say that the production partner model, it keeps all of the business as your business, number one. So the production partner is an extension of you. This isn't a licensed assistant. This is a salesperson who's married to your deals. Mm-hmm. In the comp model, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think for argument's sake, it's either a salary plus bonus or something like 15% of the commission. So if you have somebody that you would normally hand off to a team member and pay out 50% of the gross commission, you're going to have a production partner where it's still your client, still your deal, and that person, you're only really paying out 15% of that deal. That is a way more profitable to keep your personal business going. And then maybe you have a team outside of that where you're keeping your personal business for yourself and you're keeping the team's business and growing that separately. That's a way more profitable way to early days grow, because most people are going to be growing off cash flow. Most people aren't going to write a check and put a couple $100,000 in the bank and say, okay, this is it. I'm starting my business with a couple $100,000 in the bank. I know that's not how we started. It was this month's deal funds next month.
Exactly. Yeah, that's about as leading with revenue as we can get. All right. So we're getting close to time. I cannot believe it always goes so fast. But let me ask you about marketing for a second, because I know that's the other place that you're really expert in. What would you give to agents who are trying to navigate this kind of what some would call a volatile, certainly a fluctuating market, as the top few things that they should be thinking about for marketing themselves to keep business flowing?
I think my best piece of advice with this is figure out what you love ideally, but like or dislike the least, and go really deep on one thing. One thing that I really, really liked about meeting a ton of people, both in the Tom Ferry ecosystem and just all over the place, is there are agents that make $1 million a year that door knock. There's agents that make $1 million a year that do open houses, and all the way down the line. But none of those agents do all of the things. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy to see somebody that does, oh my gosh, they do these mega open houses with food trucks, and I'm going to do that. And then 2 weeks later, meet somebody that's doing really well at door knocking and be like, ooh, I want to do that too. And that for me, and this isn't just real estate, this is just business, is maybe this quarter or this year, you get really, really focused on one thing and then master it. And then if you need to or can, then you add something else. But I think we get the shiny penny or the squirrel syndrome so easily as salespeople that it's really, really hard to give anything a shot if you're not sticking with it for a year, which is hard for an agent to hear.
Yeah, you're so right about that. And that kind of consistency and tenacity to stick to something relatively long term, it's an important muscle to build. And I think it isn't sort of like a native trait of most salespeople and even most real estate agents. So you kind of have to practice it and you have to keep yourself very accountable. And if you can't, bring somebody else in who can keep, like a coach. Tom Ferry organization is a great place to find one who can keep you like on that track and make sure that you are digging deep and in the right way on the things that are going to work for you.
Yeah,
Great,
totally.
great advice. So what's next for you, Christian?
What's next for us?
Yeah.
So we're really just growing out the team. We are we're growing steadily in transactions. We're really we're going back to recruiting as well too. We started about 9 months ago. And I'm saying that coming from a place where we brought a lot of people onto the team in 2021. They just weren't a good fit. And that came from a point where we were hiring people just for the sake of saying we had agents on the team and not being like, we need to find really, really good people. So that's been really the big focus for the last 9 months. And what we're doing, I mean, on the note of marketing, what we're really looking to build out right now is generating as many opportunities as possible for our agents. So we're building out our YouTube channel that's lead generation specific. We've made videos for a year and a half because that's what we're supposed to do, with really no direction or guidance. We've spent very little time on it. So we're building that out. That'll be all year long. That'll be our major focus. And the goal there is to generate, hundreds of leads, hopefully a month, and a lot of commissions based off of that, and get really, really good at it. That's one thing we're focusing on right now. The other thing we're focusing on is leveraging our database as much as possible. We have, being an online leads team, is we have in 4 years accumulated almost 30,000 leads. Wow. And doing as much as we can with the database that we already have, as opposed to just pulling out the credit card and buying more new leads. Because about, I don't know, 40% of all the deals we're doing right now are last year's leads. Wow.
All right. I want to, we're like probably past time, but I just want to ask you two things because I've got you and you're giving us such good stuff on the video piece.
Yeah.
Are you hiring somebody to help you with that process? What does that look like in terms of you getting better at it?
Really good question. So I can speak to all ranges of this because I've had a videographer on payroll. We got rid of that last year and decided, hey, we'll just contract him when we need him, and we'll outsource to Fiverr. I have a lot of VAs. Here's my advice: is video does not need to be anything sexy. I painted my wall because it looked better, right? And made like a nice looking background. Not necessary. I have videos, if you go to my channel, where it's ugly wall, no background, white. And if the content's good, people watch as long as they find it, right? So you can do video on your own. You don't need to have really good editing. You don't need to have all of those things. If you're not going to be really, really consistent with it, and it's not going to be like that one thing you're focusing on, you don't really need to do anything. You can use BombBomb or you can use Loom or whatever, and you can do it that way. If you're going to really dive into it, I would start by outsourcing to Fiverr for video editing, because that's a tremendous amount of time. And if you don't have the skills for that, it's worth $15 for someone else to edit your videos. But stay consistent with it is the biggest thing. Like I just shared that our whole initiative this year is to grow out our YouTube channel for lead generation. When I had my videographer a year ago, we were doing videos with no like real strategic goal. And I had this idea that I want to build a YouTube channel for lead generation. And, I'm busy doing a million other things. And I didn't realize it until actually last week when I was going back through what worked and what didn't last year. And I'm like, well, shoot, I had the 4 videos that I made that are the same style that we're doing now, pros and cons of moving to Orange County, that types of stuff. I had like 4 videos last year that had several hundred organic views. And we had like 3 deals from those. Almost $100,000 in commissions. I'm like, why did I not do this a year ago? I was so mad at myself. And that is the moral of the story, is stick to one thing. Because we went from that to something else to something else. And every time that I've had success in growing this team, it's because we went really deep on something.
So interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Great, great tips. All right, my last question is back to going back through your database of 30,000 people. If you had to give, because agents are out there going, oh, I've got a whole backlog of people too. I don't know, I haven't talked to them in forever. What's your like tip to dig back in and get started?
Two things, both, well, one's easier than the other, but the most important thing is the easiest, is email marketing is your absolute best friend. I have a lot of real estate agent friends, and I'm on a lot of their newsletters, and you can tell who's buying the same newsletter because it's the same thing. And your consumers are probably realizing like, oh, John is sending the same thing as Adam. That's funny. That's your opportunity to push a button and touch, for me, 30,000 people. So if I were to ask you, Meredith, like if you were to call 30,000 people, you'd probably spend some time figuring out what you were going to say to them before, right? And what we do so often is we say, oh, we're doing a newsletter, buy the cheapest newsletter service we can find, and start firing away emails and we'll get deals. And that's the one thing that we do right now is I spend about an hour and a half plus filming a video, maybe 2 hours every week on our newsletter. And that gets me the opportunity to resend it. And we touch 30% of our database every single week with something that's valuable. It's what's going on in our local market. It's also a really good lead magnet too, because you get people subscribing for the newsletter and I'm delivering value. And I'm not really in production right now, but because I have my production partners that do my personal deals for me. But the big thing with this is when I pick up the phone in our database to our dead leads, as some of our agents would call them, they know me. They're like, oh, Christian, yeah, I've been getting your emails. I'm not moving anytime soon, but like, keep sending that stuff. I appreciate it. And I'm like, huh. And these videos, we put a video on all of them, but it's not a fancy outline. The email is a picture of a thumbnail where they can click and watch the video if they want, or they can just read it and it's just text.
That's great.
Yeah, that's been the one. That's one, is that piece of content to our database via email all the time. Because then if I'm in production, if I'm going back to the solo agent, if you only have 500 people and you don't know who to call, I'd start by clicking the people that open that email.
Yeah.
And then use the script. This is my favorite script in all of real estate, and it's the easiest to memorize. It's, hey, did you get it?
That's a good one.
And then you can have a conversation on whatever you sent them. And hopefully it was good enough that maybe they remembered it or maybe they didn't, whatever, but it allows you to have a conversation. It's pretty straightforward.
That's great.
When you make that content as well too, this is like 1.5, I guess it leads into 2, is we take that email, copy and paste it onto Facebook, copy and paste it onto LinkedIn, shorten it up, put it on Twitter, make a carousel ad for Instagram. Like that's just one piece of content you can go and put on everything. I'm not saying you have to do that, but if you do write out an email, you should copy and paste that onto Facebook and Instagram, or Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you're not comfortable posting that to Facebook and LinkedIn, you should probably make sure the content's good, because if you don't want to post it on Facebook, you shouldn't be emailing it out.
Good point. Yeah.
And the other thing is retargeting, right? Like if you make this carousel ad or this whatever that is good content already, boost it to your audience, right? And if that's too complicated, then don't do it. Email marketing that's the number one driver for us right now, is getting engagement, and then picking up the phone afterwards and asking what they thought of the stuff.
That's great. So it's creating something that is actually delivering value, makes you stand apart a little bit, resonates with your audience, and then the follow-up, crucial.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, fantastic. All right. The only other thing I want to mention is the other thing that's next for you is your podcast. So you've got a podcast coming out. Do you know when you're going to start publishing it?
So I've recorded 2.
Okay.
They're going to start coming out, I think, in the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be called Start to Finish in Real Estate. And the point of this, which I love the direction that this went, is so many times it's easy to talk about how a business started or how your career started or how it is now, the start and the finish. And we're really going to focus on the middle, right? Like, how did you go from A to Z, and what are plans for next? So I love the direction and questions you're asking here. But yeah, I like the business side of real estate. I love sales, I love marketing. And so I figured I might as well have a conversation with a whole bunch of other people and get their take as well too.
Fantastic. Great that you're sharing that with people. They will get a lot of value out of it. And we got so much value from you joining us. Thank you so much, Christian, for being here today. If people want to find you, how can they, aside from your podcast, how can they find you?
Yeah, you have Instagram's probably the best place. It's just at Christian Stubbs. If you want to check out the email newsletter that we send out to our clients, we bought ocmarketupdates.com, and you can go subscribe there and you'll get that email every Friday.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. This was awesome. I want to thank
That was
the
fun.
sponsors. Yeah, it was. I want to thank the sponsors who make the show possible, the Rozek team with Embrace Mortgage, Paul Harsani with First National Bank, Village Settlements, and Peak Settlements. Please consider reaching out to them and to us, to Christian and to me via social media, online, to ask a question, pick our brains about anything, or just to connect. And please remember to leave us a review or rating on the platform on which you listen. We are so grateful that you have listened today. And for all of you who join us regularly, we could not be more grateful. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. We'll see you next time. If you're interested in learning how to become that go-to local real estate expert all the sellers call to give you their listings, read Farming for Real Estate Agents. You can pick up your copy today on Amazon, Kindle, on Audible, or anywhere you get books.